What's up? What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. You see the subscribe button there. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We appreciate all the subscribers that have joined in the last few weeks. We want to keep that rolling. You guys keep the comments going and liking and all the things you guys are doing. Appreciate all that you've done. It's football time in Oklahoma. The grass is greening up, especially down there in Norman. I wish my lawn looked a fourth as good as that lawn. That's unbelievable. We'll get to that in a second. They had the first scrimmage of the day yesterday. Can't talk a whole lot about that, but we'll try to hit some of the notes that we've heard or that have been made public. And also, last night, first episode dropped of the OUDNA All Access. We'll talk a little bit about that. Guys, here we go. Let's get started.
Well, just as you said, man, the grass looks green, and I can tell you that they did a great job on that turf field, man. It looks beautiful. We all saw the video of Travis Davidson right next to it. I believe, is it all natural grass now? Is that what the change was to, or is it turf or what?
Tahoma 31.
Yeah.
It's definitely not turf.
You don't mow turf. There was mowers on it, dude. Hey.
Well, I mean, turf can be grass. He's not meaning artificial turf.
Yeah, artificial turf.
My bad.
And the other thing is, did you see the house in Edmond that had the same type of turf grass?
No.
It looked exactly the same, dude. This grass is unbelievable.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. You just talk about, man, football season's right around the corner. I was outside this afternoon, and, man, in my yard, the grass just smelled like football season. It's starting to smell like that fall weather. It's getting close. And guys, as you said, they've been scrimmaging. And a lot of things that we said we've been looking forward to is the battles of the offensive versus defensive line and who can step up as wide receiver 3. So it's kind of like who on the offense and the defense is going to separate themselves as these scrimmages progress.
I think, we're talking about the wide receiver room. Some guys I think that are just recently have kind of been having good practices and being called out quite a bit are Nick Anderson and Andrell Anthony. And I think those two names, maybe those names are separating themselves. I don't know. But to me, though, the only thing about those guys is they're almost totally different players. Andrell Anthony is kind of your burner. And Nick Anderson, not saying he's not in speed, but he's got a bit more, I would say, a more physical receiver probably. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, Nick Anderson's I see him more of a Hazelwood, faster than Hazelwood probably. Even got physicality of a CD Lamb, but definitely not maybe that speedster. But one thing that I think stands out is I saw in an interview with Andrell Anthony, and to attest with Nick Anderson as well, but Andrell Anthony spoke on it, how many reps he's getting after practice with DG, guys. Okay? That shows a sign of maturity, and I don't know that all the receivers are out there, but I know Andrell Anthony is getting a lot of reps. I know Nick Anderson is. That is great to hear because those are things you cannot over talk enough. It's just the communication with between receiver and quarterback. You hear the best talk about that and how you spend time after practice. It's great to hear that.
Yeah, those two specifically, they've only known each other for 7 months now. It's August. Andrell Anthony got here in January, so it's an adjustment. And Anthony was talking about that yesterday on to be able to get in rhythm now before the season is huge, because if not, then you're in the middle of the season trying to get that connection going, and it takes time for wide receivers and quarterbacks to get into a rhythm to where they're comfortable with each other and able to make it easier on each other by being in that rhythm. And Jeremy's mentioning the extra reps he's getting. That's what they need. And I think, again, like Jeremy said, the maturity level in that. Andrell Anthony wants to be a winner this year. He wants to have a big year. And I think that's a lot of the team. I think this team is really just they're we kind of saw it tonight on OUDNA. Like, they're ready for a big season. They're ready to put in the work for it.
Yep.
One thing, though, one thing when you're talking about the staying after and the details and all that with DG, guys, they have to be better on third down. DG last year, there was a lot of times him and the receiver were either off a little bit on third down, and most of the time on these plays I'm talking about, the receiver had plenty. He was wide open, and it's just the timing was off or something. And they have to be better at that. And I'm hoping that's what they're working the details, because I could see that with the amount of depth they have in the receiver room, you get down at the goal line. I mean, you got guys you can throw in there. I mean, they're on one-on-one coverage, guys like Freeman, Nick Anderson, Andrew Anthony, Jaden Gibson, if you want to go big. I mean, there's plenty of guys you can throw in, and if they got to be on the same page, so.
Yeah, and I think something we heard a lot during the offseason was the player-led practices. These players going out of their own way, their own time, whether it's, say, after summer workouts or plan their own trips on the weekends or do something to go in and get this extra work. And it's good to know that that's something that's not just happening during summer, but also during the fall, in which, they haven't started school yet. They technically haven't started classes. So they're able to still go and put in this extra work while they have the time, and that they're committed to doing it.
Yeah, the leadership to me is a big difference than last year. The guys that are stepping up and leading, and not to say DG couldn't have led last year, but he was pretty new.
I mean Braden Willis was a freaking good leader.
Braden Willis was a great leader, but I'm just talking about, it seems like some of those other guys weren't that great, in my opinion, Jay. I don't know that, and I'm not going to bash players, but I'm not sure on some. Broyles was a great leader, but I just think there seems to be more bought in. The culture's been there a year now, so it's kind of everyone knows what to expect across the board. It did sound like the D-line, the interior, a lot of guys to choose from, that could be a strength when we know it's been a weakness for many years, the defensive line. It's great as on the OUDNA to see that they're watching kind of clips of the 95 Bears with Richard Dent and those guys, Refrigerator Perry and those guys. So hopefully the D-line gels and these guys can be fresh and rotating in 6, 7, 8 guys.
Yeah, and you talk about an interior of the defensive line. It's just who's going to separate themselves to the top. That's we know that there's depth there. There's very good. The word that's been phrased so much, how we've used a lot, everyone's used a lot, is competitive depth. There truly is competitive depth there. Now, who's going to separate themselves to the top by week 1? And that's really a big question.
Yeah, they sure you guys saw it on OUDNA. I can't remember what meeting they were going into, but they showed Isaiah Coe walking in, and I just cannot see how he's not on the field. That guy built. We want to talk about Schmitty transitions this offseason. That might have to be at the top, or if not the top, in the top 5 at the minimum. Isaiah Coe looks drastically different than he did last year.
Yeah, and I was actually watching it with Brody, and I didn't get a glance at the face. I just saw the body. And I asked Brody, I go, "Who's that?" That's what I said. I go, "Who's that?" Brody goes, "That's Coe." I'm like, "Oh, dang." Yeah.
And you talk about a dude like him and Savion Byrd. They're both close or over 300 pounds. So, and them to have defined.
Oh, Bird's over 300 for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Then they both over 300. But you just talk about somehow a 300-pound offensive lineman, defensive lineman, being able to have defined arms that are absolutely shredded, massive biceps. I remember us hearing it just last year that this team. Obviously, last year they did look a lot better physically, and they looked the part in some ways. But this year, I expect them to look the part as a whole.
Well, Chris Plank yesterday came on the Sooner Surge. It was great to have him on, and he talked about a little bit of what you just said, Jackson, that he loved everything he was hearing last year, right? He loved it all. This year, it feels a little different. He loves what he's hearing, and he's seeing some things that – and I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but I thought it was interesting how he said that.
He said that he loved what he heard last year, but it didn't replicate on the field. This year, hopefully it's going to be a little different.
And I think really everyone's feeling that way. I know I'm not sure about you guys, but last year the vibes were very, very high from everything we heard.
Oh, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. Yep.
Yeah, and it never panned out. It was a 6 and 7 season, the worst we've had in 24 years. And this year, the vibes again are high, but there's the competitive depth cannot be overlooked. It's said probably almost 100 times per video we do now between me and Jackson on competitive depth. It's there. Like you're talking about Isaiah Coe. Some people, we did the 2 deep video a few days ago. If you guys haven't checked that out, go ahead and watch that. Some people didn't have Isaiah Coe as a starter on that. I can't remember exactly, but I think there was a couple that he was on the 2 deep, not as a starter. And you look at Isaiah Coe now, what they show on OUDNA, like it's just we haven't had this luxury as OU fans in a long time where you can make an argument for a whole lot of guys to be starters. And there's only, I think Jeff Lebby said before in a press conference, it's like there's only one guy can start in positions, like, but they have multiple that are able to do so.
Yeah, and it's like with Coe, it's just been he's flashed several times. Like we saw it last year against teams like Iowa State and Baylor, where he just flashed, and it was the consistent part for him being able to put it all together. So this year, I think if he can put all of his, especially with his just raw athleticism and talent, if he can put all of it together, I expect him to be the full-time starter all year long and potentially an all Big 12 player.
Yeah. Yeah. Barry Switzer. Okay. Bob Stoops. Brent Venables. I'm not putting Lincoln Riley in that. His name doesn't start with B, but what else does he not have? Guys, you listen to 20 seconds. Actually, I'll change that. 6 seconds of Brent Venables and staff. You'll run to the wall for this dude. And you could say the same thing for the other guys. You could not have said that with Lincoln Riley. That is not the type of. He was not a motivational coach like that.
I think the offensive players could say that about Lincoln Riley.
I don't. But I'm talking about the intensity that he brings. What these guys are. Yeah. What I'm trying to get at is the intensity level automatically is going to go up with these guys coaching because of just the type of coach they are, where I think Lincoln Riley was a little more finesse. That's my opinion.
Well, you hear Venables use the word physicality a lot in all his videos that OU football puts out, OUDNA tonight, or whatever he was talking about after the game last year in the Cheez-It Bowl. So, yeah, he does preach that physicality for sure.
Well, Jerm, I guess you could, if you're going on the B thing, you could throw Lincoln in there because the second word in his name, it starts with the B. So
that is true. That is exactly right. And guys, if you're not on board, get on this train as we're going to continue to roll through, get to football season. We are getting really close. We're almost 2 weeks away, guys, from opening game at the Palace on the Prairie, where the grass is going to be beautiful. Hopefully some great fall weather opening weekend, and the tailgating's all back, as we talked about yesterday. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and drop your comments on what you look forward to most, or how about this? A game day tradition that you have at your family, okay? Whether it's at the game or at your house, drop one of the game day traditions. Until next time, guys, Boomer.
Boomer.